This is the Star Wars Darth Vader speakerphone from 1983. Luke, you have a phone call.
Hi, I'm George the Antique Nomad. Come with me as I wander the country in search of valuable vintage, amazing antiques, and cool collectibles. We'll buy, sell, and trade at antique malls, shops, and shows, estate sales, flea markets, thrift stores, anywhere people go to find really interesting things that just aren't made anymore. So come on, let's go!
Welcome, viewers. Thanks for being with us again. This is George the Antique Nomad at the Antique Nomad on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Periscope, and weekly YouTube videos. So check us out there. Thanks for following and subscribing and all that good stuff. And today we are not just shopping at an antique mall, I'm actually fluffing my booth. We're at Twin Lakes Antique Mall in Gilbertsville, Kentucky. And the main reason I came is because it's the first of the month, so time to pick up our check. And also because I am expanding here. It has been a really pleasant surprise. The people here are great. They work the floor, they actually talk to the customers, and they get out and help people. And because of that, my sales are consistently good here. And I don't usually expand in the same mall. I like to spread things out because you get different people in different places. But this is a far enough drive that it makes sense to have a bigger space. And I had a whole bunch of big furniture and interesting old pieces to bring in.
I just doubled the size of my space. And so I'm going to show you a little bit of what we brought in. It looks a lot different than it did the last time. We have a lot of small furniture and butcher block tables. We have an old machinist chest with the old copper level on the back. These file drawers just came in. These are really popular now. Old industrial pieces like this out of garages and workshops and things are finding new life for people who collect different things. And for people who collect prints and paper, it's a great way to lay things down. I know people who collect jewelry, shells, all sorts of stuff that use these sorts of things. I paid $200 for it. They're worth about $450. The old desk here is from Buffalo, New York. That dates to about 1900. This is a steamer trunk, and we've got it all full of linens, but if you look, these are all little drawers here, and then on the other side, they could actually hang their clothes. I've sold these before to performers who use them when they're traveling, and they sell for about $100 and a quarter, so that was a fun thing. This is an old 1910s cabinet that we filled with tea leaf ironstone and jewel tea and related patterns. And then next to it is an old refrigerator ice box full of more tea leaf. Got a big collection of that. And this is going to date to about 1910. A lot of people use these for wine storage because they will still keep things cool because they've got the metal liners. This horse is really cute. This is an oilcloth piece. This is a child's toy from about 1930. And the oilcloth has that sort of water-resistant surface. That's why they call it that. It feels a little bit oily in a way. There's also a lot of art and prints on the walls. We have several pieces by John Paul Strain, who's an artist who specializes in Civil War scenes and is very collectible. I've sold those to Northerners from Gettysburg and Southerners from Tennessee and various Civil War buffs all over the country. This piece is a lath art piece made by de Groot. Figured out how to use old lath from like lath and plaster walls to make art pieces, and then Austin Product made it in the 70s. Next to it we have this piece. This is signed by Mitchell Page. He was one of the heroes, of course, at Guadalcanal, and Colonel Charles Waterhouse is the artist, so it's double signed. There's this really great blue washing machine that I got in Idaho. Everything works, and including the wringer and the whole bit. People use those as coolers, but there are still people who like to use them and press their clothes that way because then they don't have to iron. Lots of Corelware in right now. And then brought in some more depression glass. We're definitely looking for pinks again because pink is a color that's coming back into fashion. The pieces here are interesting. This is buffalo china, and never have actually seen this pattern with the horse before. This is a restaurant wear pattern. On the bottom, they're also marked with the label for Albert Pick, who is the company in Chicago who distributed this sort of stuff. And I found these in Louisville. I don't think they realized how scarce they are, and so I picked up the whole set. We've got a lot of the Del Prado and other lead horsemen and other soldiers, and then a big cabinet that's just come in, a couple of them. There's the Del Prado that you're seeing. I think it's Del Prado or Del Prado. Bought some industrial furniture and related items again, because look at this with all the cubby holes. Super functional piece. It cost $100. I've got it priced at about $235. I know in other markets that some stuff like this is just flying out, which is good because this thing was really heavy to get in here. So it's not moving until someone takes it home. And then in the front of the booth, you're going to see some more art. These are Midwestern artists, Roy Harm and Albert Earl Gilbert, who did very naturalistic looking pieces like eagles. You have the owls here. There's another one that's owls in the booth as well. Of course, we're looking for owls because 70s owls are very popular now. And then we also see a bunch of different pieces. This is a Tiffin glass vase from about 1930 that's just come in the black amethyst with the satin. We have a nice fireplace screen over here. This is hand painted. This is going to be from the 1930s. So a new variety of things in my booth, and then we're going to go take a look at a few other places.
We are in Twin Lakes Antique Mall. This is Gilbertsville, Kentucky, by Kentucky Lake and Lake Barkley, which is called Land Between the Lakes. It's a big national recreation area, and I think a couple million people a year come through here because it is a big tourist destination. It's the largest body of water between the Great Lakes and the Gulf of Mexico. I used to come here as a shopper all the time, and then I became a dealer here, and so often you don't shop the places where you sell because you're too busy and you're there all day and then you go home. And this is a great place to shop. A couple of weeks ago, I bought 4 or 5 items, and almost all of them sold in Florida right away. So we're going to look for fun things. This is a neighbor of mine. They've restocked, and they have some interesting things that are collectible now as well. We see a lot of interest in Breyer horses. Again, this is a 60s, 70s thing that is a toy, quote unquote. They like the Breyer, and especially in this area, but really they're popular all over. I sell a lot of them out west as well. Anything Star Wars. This is the Star Wars Darth Vader speakerphone from 1983. Luke, you have a phone call. I've had that before. They've got it priced at $70. That's about right. So they'll sell it to someone. It won't be me because I'm buying for resale, but it's a neat piece. They've got a whole lot of Moon and Stars glass, also from the 70s. We see a lot of interest in this pattern because so many people remember growing up with it in the 60s and 70s. It was actually a Victorian pattern originally, and then they redid it in all the 60s colors. So you see hot orange and avocado and teal blue and purple and bright green, and so people like them because they're bright and fun. They look great in a window, they look good on the table, and they're also heavy, so they don't break easily. A lot of people who have kids, you know, it used to be that people in their 40s and 50s started collecting because the kids were older and out of the house. Nowadays, a lot of people that age still have kids in the house, so they have to be a little more selective about what they buy, and that's something that can really hold up to family use.
I wanted to show you some things in this space because this dealer gets some really special pieces. First of all, the old root beer barrel. This is going to date to probably 19-teens or 20s. It would have been the soda fountain, and you actually would have lifted this to mix all the syrups in it. These pieces were almost all lost during the Second World War. They were torn apart. The metal was used for war purposes, so very hard to find these. This one's priced at $450. That's actually a pretty good price for these. And then we've got 2 really fine slot machines here. This one's been restored. This one is original, it appears. The Art Deco style is no accident. Gambling became legalized in Nevada in 1931, and so there was a rush to create Art Deco style gaming machines because it was the Depression, and this was something that could keep these companies in business. So Pack Manufacturing came out with the Comet line, and then we have this one with the Great Eagle on the left. These are very desirable. Even if you find one in non-working condition, they're pretty fixable, so it's not hard to deal with that.
I always look at spaces where they're having big sales because what I sell in different areas is different place to place. This place is 75% off, and he has a lot of paper ephemera, and things like that. And I like little advertising. I look for stuff that people might recognize being from a certain place. This is St. Louis. I'd be more likely to buy it if it was somewhere East Coast, because my next shows I've got a lot of East Coast customers. These Star Trek pieces, they're 75% off of 14, so that's probably $3 or $4 a piece. And even though they're not wildly old, they are Star Trek The Next Generation.
80s.
That's old enough now because that's, over 20 years old, and with toys, they become collectible faster. Has it been 30 years? Wow, I can't believe it. Jean-Luc Picard does not look any different when I see Patrick Stewart out there. He doesn't look like he's aged at all, which doesn't seem fair. This is a new dealer, and I like to look at new dealers because they sometimes have things that are different than what you've seen, or maybe are things that they just brought in because they haven't been able to sell them somewhere else. And I might have a customer, mid-century lamp with a really great dual level fiberglass shade. They want a 3-digit number on it. I think it is that cool. It's not for me, but it is a really great piece. This is Fostoria Heirloom. This is a good example of 60s glass that does sell. You can see the star pattern in the bottom here if you flip it over. This is an opalescent. A lot of people think that if it looks like this, it's going to definitely fluoresce under a black light, but that's not necessarily so. It really depends on whether there was uranium salt in the batch when they made that particular set of glass. And I don't think that that pattern actually used that. I just got a request from a viewer looking for orange tree in Fenton. This is priced at $32.50, which is not bad for an early 1910s Fenton piece of that pattern. And if they need it, I'm going to come back and get it for them. I do requests for people all the time. I've got people I've known for years, and I've been filling their requests little by little over the years, and it's a lot of fun. This place has a certain amount of Pyrex. And of course, Pyrex is really hot right now. 15 is not too bad on the pink because that's a hard color to find. And this is custard glass, and it is Fenton. I thought it seemed a little newer. That's going to be 1970s Fenton. They have 30 on this. That's another thing I'm going to have to research. We filmed this with the phone, and that's how I do my research. So I'm not filling the cart yet, but I'm definitely making mental notes because that could be a good piece because of the custard glass and because it's Fenton. And butter dishes seem to sell. I don't know what it is, if people have trouble finding them new in the stores. Very fun, slightly dilapidated looking Santa. This guy has got felt in the plastic boots. He's probably going to be 1950s or early 60s, I would say. Probably early 60s because of the vinyl belt. He's one I haven't seen before. This guy's winking. He's 19 minus 15%. Gosh, so that makes him about 17, 16. He's got a rubber vinyl face. Yeah, he's a maybe too. I remember these very portly little Santa ornaments from when I was a kid. So that makes this 1970, $5 minus 15%. So he's almost definitely going to go with me. Unfortunately for me, they're selling the color wheel with the aluminum Christmas tree, and I always like to buy extra color wheels because I get the trees more often than I get the color wheel, and you need that to really have it pop out and sparkle. So I will probably not get that set, but they are definitely cool. This booth has a real mix of stuff, and of course I like everything, so that's good for me. This has come in recently. A little more than I could afford, but this is a great piece out of the 30s with this Saturn on it, and it is going to be, let's see, with the discount, looks like about $70, $75. Again, a good collector price. This mall is very fair on prices, and as a dealer, I can find things in here to buy. This is going to be something that's more for someone who wants to take it home and have it, which when I was in my Art Deco phase at home, I would have wanted it. The hand-carved pipes here, those are pretty cool. They're going to be about $35 to $40 each, which is perfectly fair for what they are. 1960s with the hat and everything, and so we've got the felt with the little hat and the whole deal. The hat almost fits me, but this wouldn't, I'm sure. So cute stuff if we were closer to Halloween, maybe. Oh, now this is cool. This is the Happy Day clock, the smiley face, and this is made in about 1970, 71 when the big fad of collecting happy faces came along. I think I'm going to go ahead and put that in the cart right now. We'll just take that one with us. This is new in the box, and it's got all this stuff. There was a time when home picture developing was a big deal, and you would see kits like this. Apparently these people were afraid to use it because it's all still there. And that makes it kind of an interesting thing for someone who collects camera related stuff. I doubt anyone would use it now. It's more just something to look cool on a shelf if you were a photographer and that kind of thing. And it's priced with the discount at about $30. I'm getting distracted because I see Navajo jewelry though. And those are neat pieces. Yeah, they're priced about right, but there's some really pretty ones. The dark color, I believe, is Bisbee turquoise, which is a particular area in Arizona where they mine that. The people who really know turquoise can look at a stone and tell you, especially the Native Americans can just look at it and say, oh yeah, that came from here, just on site by the most minor differences between the stones. Piece in the back here, this nautical piece, is actually an antique compass. You see the glass dome over the top of it, and that's a pretty cool thing. I haven't had one of those to sell in a long time because they go for $150 to $200, which is what they've got on that one. I have not found one at a price I could afford for quite a while. And then we've got the boot scraper here. This is definitely something we would sell in this part of the country. And that one's an aluminum boot jack. It's actually based on a cast iron one that was made a long time ago, and that one, I believe, in the aluminum was done in the 50s and 60s.
This was always one of my favorite booths to shop before I was a dealer here because they have really nice pieces and a lot of true antiques. The Wavecrest pieces here, like this jar, date to about 1895 to 1910. And they're part of a series in that era where you saw a lot of companies making really beautiful dresser jars. Look at this with the big fascinator in her hair. That's going to date also to about 1910. And then you have a painted cobalt glass one to the left with some sort of a scene. These types of things are very collectible for boudoir collectors, people doing vanities, people who collect jewelry and want a nice little place to put a few pieces. They're special and not commonly seen. Also not commonly seen on the next shelf are these Cambridge nude stems. These are going to date to the 1930s. They have the ruby top, and you can see the really beautiful design. Nudes were a very popular motif in the 1930s because, again, the deco elegance and the style, it just fit.
It has a strange shape because this originally would have been held in something. There would have been some caddy that would have held this there, probably like a little metal stand. And
Treasure craft?
No, this one actually, it looks like treasure craft, but when it says USA and you don't see any marks that say treasure craft, it's actually called Sequoia ware. Sequoia ware was basically their attempt to copy what treasure craft was doing because treasure craft was very popular in the 60s with all these big leaf ashtrays and all the Hawaiian and tiki things. And I have several pieces in my house because treasure craft is what I wrote the book on and one of the things I collected first. I wrote one of the last collector reference books. The market really changed right about then. So when I did the pricing, I based it on eBay and that sort of thing. And a lot of the older books have great information, but the pricing is based on what things were before eBay came around. And of course, before eBay, we could only see our little portion of the world. So we thought things were a lot rarer than they were in a lot of cases. So the prices are not necessarily as useful in reference books, but I am hearing a lot of younger thrifters and collectors looking for the old reference books to actually identify things and learn more about the subject, which I think is great. And so it could be that the collector references will come back again. I suspect, though, if I did another one, I would do it on some sort of a downloadable format where people could just ask me for it and we just sell it and send it to them electronically in some way, like an ebook. That way we can get more information. And one problem with the Treasure Craft book is I took 600 pictures and they could only let me publish 200. So I get questions all the time. Oh, what about this rare thing that's not in your book? And I'm like, well, it would have been. What's nice about this is that it's got the caddy. That's really where the value is in this. This one is Leonard Crystal, and that's going to date to late 70s, early 80s. But people really like the holders because they'll get the older 50s stuff and they'll put them in this. And there's a lot of people who like these sort of barware sets. I like this little table. This is the kind of thing I sell in Florida pretty well. because snowbirds like little things that they can use for a season or two and doesn't move around much.
The hurricane won't blow it away.
Yes, that's exactly right. They like heavy things that will not blow away in the hurricane when they're gone. This is another Pyrex pattern that people are starting to collect. It's only $30. It's one of the less expensive patterns. I like it in this color. This is from about 1980 when this rust color came into fashion. Pyrex is one of those things that is so popular right now. A prototype set, a one-of-a-kind that was never made, that somehow escaped the factory, sold for, I heard, $12,000.
I showed this in an Instagram posting one day just for fun and got so much response to it that I thought I better show it on video. There's a lot of interest in the old portable typewriters, especially the ones in colors. And this one is a mid-60s color Smith Corona. So this is a crazy looking device that not everybody would recognize as a phone until you pick it up and boom, on the bottom, there is the rotary dial. This is called an Erica phone. These were originally a Swedish design, and then it was licensed to a company in Ohio that made them for the American market. And they were very popular in the 50s and 60s. They came in about 8 or 10 different colors. Red is just about the scarcest. This one's priced at $100, which is what I got for the last one I sold. So a right-on price and a really cool piece.
These foo dogs are going to be more recent. They're also called foo lions in some places. They were to guard the temples in China. These are quite ornate, and they're in really good shape. They're only $50 for the pair because they're more contemporary. These are something I can show you as a little bit of education. So these are the spaniels that are based on the Staffordshire Spaniels, but these are reproductions, and I can tell you why. It looks really old because you see lots of crazing and crackling. But if you look at the bottom where it's got this paint, look how the paint and the glaze spills over onto the bottom. It has no wear. It's never come off, which means nobody ever used these. And they're trying to make it look old, so they're staining it with this gray, and they're putting something in the chemicals in the glazes to actually make them crackle on purpose to look old. Pretty recent vintage out of the Orient, rather than the originals from England.
This is a 1968 Schwinn bike, and this is a Hollywood Deluxe. It was a popular model in the time. It's a shiny red. It's got some good accessories like the place to put your goods on the back and the chrome fenders. And it's also got the front mount. And the best thing about this is this one has not been restored. It's hard to find them in unrestored condition because a lot of them have sat in barns and sheds for years and gotten all corroded, so they end up being repainted. So to find the original with the original logos and the original colors is really good. The only thing that would make this better is if it was a boy's bike. Girls took better care of their bikes typically, so we see a lot more girls' bikes now. Boys tended to thrash theirs, and most of them went to the junkyard, so they are actually more desirable even. One more area of interest I wanted to show, and they've got some nice pieces that are modern from the 70s. I'm going to walk to the other side of the booth while I show you this one, if I can get through here without breaking anything. This is Dansk Coben style. This enamelware with these shaped handles and this type of a lid is very popular, very collectible now. This was made in Denmark in the early 70s in various colors. You're going to see one behind me to the left in red. And then there's also a bunch of Descoware and Le Creuset. These are all pieces that were done in France and Belgium in the 1970s as well. Really bright colors in enamelware and really heavy clad pieces were very popular for cooking because they were easy to clean compared to the old cast iron. And that's part of why they're still popular today, is you can use them like cast iron, but they actually clean a lot easier. And they are really great, happy colors that look fun in a kitchen. And so they're very popular again. All of these pieces are going to price between $30 and $65 now.
The younger thrifters are picking these up every time they see them. Cats are very popular, and there's lots of people who collect them. This particular one, it's got glass eyes. One of them is a little reacted, but it's a really lightweight ceramic. And these are things that were made sometimes in ceramics classes in the 70s and 80s, and then they were even sold new and imported as recently as the 90s. So I personally avoid them because to me that's not old enough. They're cute.
The owl.
And there's nothing wrong with buying just because you like something. Just don't think you're buying antique. This guy's got a chip as well, and I'm real wary about chips. This is also a homemade piece, but this is a little older. This is going to be 1970s with the hand painting. He's not badly priced. If he didn't have the chip, you know, owls are coming back, and that would be a thing to consider buying. They were such a craze in the 70s.
Depression glass 30 years ago was the most collected thing other than coins and stamps in the market. And that's changed a lot because a lot of pieces have gone into collections. One nice thing about this mall is there's still a dealer specializing in it here, so you can really get a feel for the colors and patterns that made it so desirable and are making it desirable again, particularly the pinks that you'll see. There's blue, there's yellow, there's pink, there's green. Some of the green does fluoresce like uranium glass depending on the day and depending what was in the kiln. Not all of it does, and two pieces that are identical in pattern, one can fluoresce and one can't. So bring your black light if you collect that, but I'll bet something in there actually would glow very nicely. And then you'll also see clear patterns. Especially popular here is the iris. This is very popular in Tennessee, particularly. I remember in Washington State when I was new in the business, we had a busload of people come from Tennessee, and we sold every single piece of iris that we had.
Carol says, is there a way to tell if the glassware came in oatmeal from reproduction?
At an old reference book, Gene Florence wrote many, many years worth of really good books on depression glass, and he's very clear about reproductions, and he has pictures in the back. The most commonly reproduced pieces tended to be a few certain patterns. Cherry blossom was reproduced, but if you look at the bottoms, there's a different number of lines inside the leaves on the old ones versus the new ones. The other thing I can tell you as a clue, besides look at the bottom, see if it seems to have wear. If it was a vase, maybe it sat on the shelf and didn't get moved around. If it's a drinking glass, unless it was the one in the back of the cupboard, it probably should have some wear on the bottom, even if it's real clean condition. Colors can be off if you take an old pink versus a new pink. Newer pinks tend to have a little bit of a peachy, orangey cast to them, and the old pinks were really pink. Another thing is the greasy feel of newer glass. When they anneal glass now, they use different methods, and because of that, it feels a little slick.
Sirocco plastic wares, and these are probably 1980s, I think. I can't quite read the date. A lot of people are buying this sort of thing. The bees are only $9 for the 3 pieces, so they're kind of cute, and they're very 70s looking. Butterflies, and the funny thing is that, you know, we never used to pay attention to these because we thought, oh, they're just plastic, who would want that? Well, everybody who grew up with them, which was just about everybody. These, on the other hand, are metal, and they're a little older, and they're not wildly old, but I think they're probably 1970s, and they're only $4. So you know what? I think I'll get those. So we'll throw that in the cart. This is something that is starting to be very collectible now. This is Royal Hager, and this is a 1980s piece with this pink. The pinks are coming back into fashion, and Royal Hager quit producing. Here's another 70s thing. This booth has a lot of 70s things that thrifters are starting to find and take interest in. These are acrylic or similar to lucite, and I buy these if they have shells in them, anything with abalone shells or that kind of thing, because they sell really well in Florida. Most of them were sold there as tourist items, and then it became kind of a little more widespread. These are going to be from the late 70s again. You can tell by the colors and the style. And also a 70s piece here, the nails and the wire art. This is something that somebody's dad made in their garage, and they took many, many, many hours to do that. Yeah, it's copper wire.
Different.
Yeah, it's really pretty cool. I like it. There are definitely people collecting wire sculptures, string art, all those funky things, popsicle art, all those things in the 60s and 70s. This is 1930s Japanese. In fact, it's actually specific to a very short time period. Between about 1934 and 1937 is when you see these lusterware pieces. Even though there's so many of them, they did redo them in the 50s, but they really are not the same quality. The ones in the 50s, honestly, they were kind of using up the leftover stuff from after the war. So the ones before the war tend to have more detailed painting.
anything birds or flora and fauna is usually better on these. You see a lot that are kind of just the plain scenes with a tree and a house and that kind of thing. I like the handle too. It's very 1930s. They had this extra thing there just for extra stability, so if the teapot is hot, you don't burn yourself. You actually can hold the thing. And that's pretty smart. By the way, if you're using this kind of stuff, which I always encourage people to use their things, they are made to be used. But with anything that you're pouring hot liquid in, you want to do like a warm water or something in it to let it expand a little bit and then put the hot tea or coffee in it. If you put the hot tea right in it and it's really cold, it can get shock and you can actually crack things. We've got rotary phones here. This is something I'm going to get to come back and shop more when I'm working on my booth this week. I love this clock. I do a lot of Western. He's $79 minus 20%. To be the one with the cowboy, that's actually a pretty good price. The horse alone with just the clock, you know, maybe a $60, $65 item. The cowboy makes it a much harder piece to find. You don't see both pieces usually, and so that's actually well priced for what it is. I have to indulge the cameraman because he does a lot of work for me, helping me with this. And this is a Puss in Boots. This is actually a pattern that was done by Shawnee originally, but this is a reproduction, which is why I wasn't going for it originally. But if you look at this, it says patent dead, D-E-D, which means that somebody in China who didn't know English didn't know how to spell patented, which is what the original said. It does say USA on it. In the 1990s, Roseville pottery and Shawnee pottery were both reproduced by the Chinese, and they put USA right on it, and it took collectors complaining to their senators to finally get our government to do something about it and make them stop putting made in America on things that were made in China. It just made us so angry in the collector market that it took months and months. Fortunately, the reproductions are bad and you can tell the difference. When I picked that one up, it's heavy in a way that the originals aren't. It's thick. It just doesn't feel right. This is cool. We really should show this. These are leather chaps. They're priced at a couple $100s. They're authentic. These are going to be from some rodeo rider or someone who did the roundup or the stampede. These date, I would say, to the 1930s, looking at the thickness of the leather. And to find anything old like that that is in good condition and intact as a wall hanging, as a display, very popular now. A lot of people are doing Western decor, country decor. This one's really good. It's $28. I may end up buying this piece. This is the style of folk art. This one looks like it's 50s and you think, oh yeah, that's like a craft project we did at camp back in the day. Except this one, somebody took great pains to do sort of almost a toll type design on. This one's actually a lot more interesting than they usually are. This really cool toboggan, which I would like to sled down a big hill sometime when it's snowy. This is great because this is an old turn of the century one, probably 1910 at the latest, with all the bent wood, and it's only $95, which I think is a pretty phenomenal price. So let's turn it like this so you all get the same view that I'm getting. Well, thank you all for joining us. This is George the Antique Nomad at the Antique Nomad on Periscope, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It was so nice having you with us again. Join us on Wednesdays for our YouTube videos, and please subscribe and follow there. We're having a lot of fun putting them together, and hopefully they'll be informative, and we'll see you there. Bye-bye now.
Thanks for joining me again in the fun and fascinating antique community, here where online meets the real world. Please click the subscribe button below, click the bell to be notified when new videos upload, leave a comment below, and hit thumbs up to like this video. Links to our online social media daily posts and our items for sale are in the description. This is George at the Antique Nomad. Bye for now.